summary of the consultation findings.
Thank you. The purpose of this report is to advise the Cabinet of the outcome of the consultation on the proposed delivery model for homeless support and seek approval to cease funding a dedicated homeless support service and instead to provide the support via the Council's existing public health services. So as identified in the report, the Council currently commissions on a discretionary basis a homeless support service which provides support to adults who are homeless or at risk of homelessness. This is currently provided for the Council by Falcon Support Services and Nottingham Community Housing Association. The contract value is £300,000 per annum and the contract ends on the 31st of March 2024. The County Council does not have a statutory responsibility to provide specific services for individuals who are homeless, and the Council is not a recipient of grant funding that is focused on preventing or relieving homelessness. Grant funding, namely the Homeless Prevention Grant and the Rough Sleeping Initiative funds, have been made available to districts to support the delivery of their responsibilities. The Council does, however, have a responsibility around improving the health of its residents, which includes the provision of health improvement information, advice and support services aimed at preventing illness. Following a review of existing provision and a review of need, we pulled together a proposed model which was developed, and that was for the County Council to cease funding the dedicated homeless support service and instead to provide the support via existing public health services. We undertook a public consultation to seek views on this proposed model, and paragraphs 30 to 38 of the report provide further detail on the consultation. The Council received 251 questionnaire responses, as well as over 130 individuals attending the information sessions, and we also received numerous responses via the dedicated email address. Just under half of the questionnaire responses were from those who were or had been supported by the Homeless Support Service and also from staff of homeless support services. Just under 3/4 of the questionnaire respondents disagreed with the proposal, and out of those who disagreed, just over half were from staff of homeless support services and those who were or had been supported by the service. Respondents were given the opportunity within the consultation to comment on the reasons for their responses, as well as putting forward alternative suggestions for a model, and these are detailed in the tables under paragraph 44 and 47. One of the main themes that came out from the consultation was the perception that the Falcon Centre, which is a homeless hostel located in Loughborough and provided by Falcon Support Services, would close, and the subsequent impact this would have on services that are provided within the centre. The funding for the County Council's Homeless Support Service does not pay for the running of homeless hostel buildings. Other comments that came out of the consultation fell under a few broad themes. One of those was that the elements that were reported or commented on fell outside of the scope of the proposal. So, for example, there were some comments made around the need for more housing. Other comments that were focused on elements that will be covered by the proposed model, for example, focusing more effort on preventing homelessness, which is where we want this service model to be aimed at. And then also elements that will be addressed during the implementation period of the proposed model. So, for example, raising awareness of existing services. So based on the extensive work that has been carried out to date, which includes a review of need, a review of existing provision, a review of responsibilities of the County Council, and a review of the consultation responses, it is recommended to cease funding the Homeless Support Service and instead provide support via existing public health services with a view to the new model commencing on 1st of April 2024. This will be achieved primarily through the universal offer of First Contact Plus and also through the local area coordination service. And this has the benefit of achieving the financial savings target of £300,000. Further description of First Contact Plus service and the local area coordination service is described within paragraphs 54 to 58 of the report. By pursuing this proposal, the aim is that we are able to provide coverage of the offer across the whole of Leicestershire, rather than being predominantly concentrated within the Falcon Centre. We want to widen the eligibility to include any individual who is at risk of becoming homeless. We want to provide access to support via a central point of access, and we want to place a greater focus on improving the health and wellbeing of these individuals. If the proposal is approved, the Council will work collaboratively with key stakeholders to strengthen the referral pathways into the service to meet people's needs. This includes the development and implementation of a communications and engagement plan, which is directly in response to the consultation feedback. The council will also work with the current providers to ensure a robust exit strategy is in place. Right. I don't know whether, would you like me to move on straight to responding to Amanda's comments? Yeah.
Yes, Josh, and carry straight on, then I'll go to Louise when you've finished your presentation. You've done a lot of work down here. Go ahead.
So one of the comments in the response was around the service being described as one service. It is one service, it is one contract, and there are two providers delivering it. The components that are described within the report are elements of the service provision, so they're not three separate entities, they are one service, one contract. And that's why the review was carried out on the service as a whole. In the same vein, it's difficult to then break down the different elements from a financial perspective, as some of the activities are shared across both providers. What we can split out is that Falcon Support Services received 210,000 and NCHA received 90,000. So that's why it's not been analysed based on three different provisions. In terms of the in-reach offer, it is already described within the report. The current service is a discretionary provision that was in place prior to the amendment to the Housing Act. Having the Homelessness Reduction Act and the associated funding has placed greater duties on districts as the housing authority to prevent, relieve homelessness. So the roles and responsibilities have actually changed since the service commenced. And then in terms of the reference to accommodation-based support, a lot of assumptions are being made that the entirety of accommodation-based support provided across Leicestershire is funded through the contract. Just to clarify, Falcon Support Services received £210,000 to deliver components of the current service, and that includes a referral hub, which includes a really comprehensive assessment process. It includes hostel-based support for 30 individuals at any one time. It includes provision of drop-in sessions and also funding for participating in contract management activity, which includes performance management and collating that performance data. So on that basis, the entirety of the 210,000 isn't solely for hostel-based support. Also, what we know is that there's a plethora of support services that operate within the centre, and these support offers are not funded through this contract, and therefore it being correct to say that the entirety of in-reach support would be lost through termination of this contract. Within that letter, there's also reference to absorbing the current work. And again, in the report, we've clearly stated that we're proposing to cease funding the dedicated homeless support service. So we're not putting forward a like-for-like offer, and therefore we're not saying that public health services will absorb all of the existing work. Instead, the intention is to focus more on upstream work. So we're wanting to look at preventing homelessness in the first place through providing health and wellbeing support to individuals at an earlier stage, rather than waiting for a person to become homeless before we intervene. And then there's reference to complex needs of individuals. The current model focuses on low to medium needs. It was not designed or intended to support those with complex needs. And so the proposed model continues with this approach.
Yeah, if I can just add to that, I suppose the important thing for me is actually, I think this new model where Mrs. Hack says that we'd not considered the specialist nature of homeless as a hostel setting. I think it's important to recognise the Falcon Centre is not the only hostel in Leicestershire. And the strengthened model we've got and the strengthened links we'll have with district council housing departments and indeed the other hostels in Leicestershire would enable us to provide that support more comprehensively across all the hostels in Leicestershire. The point about complexity and caseload, Joshua has well made.
Thank you. Louise, one of yours?
Thank you. And first of all, I want to thank the officers for the incredible amount of work that's gone into this proposal, and also for the difficulties they've had working up to this point. I do want to focus on the fact that this is a very small amount of funding we're talking about from the whole of the Falcon Support Services budget. So I do want to reiterate that we don't provide the accommodation, and that I would have expected knowing that the time was coming up to the end of contract, the plans would be put in place by the charity and that they would have sustainability plans put in. It's normal to review a service at the end of a contract. It's not about the provider, it's about the service and what we want to be able to provide for the health and well-being of, we're talking about the homelessness cohort at the moment. But we do look after or try to look after all our vulnerable cohorts within our society. There were a number of issues within the consultation about face-to-face and how people can't access the service. Anyone at risk of homelessness can refer themselves or have anybody else refer them into the service. Our LACs will provide, local area coordinators will provide the one-to-one support for people requiring it. The proposal will be a bespoke model. So what the individual needs to try to prevent them getting to crisis point in the first place is where we're trying to target our service. And by working with the districts, we're hoping to be able to pull in about 2,000 people before they get to crisis point county-wide, rather than the blocks we have at present with only 30 people being accommodated in Falcon Centre, and that there are blocks in getting those people moving through. So we're hopeful that this is actually going to deliver a much better service in a lot of ways. And I think I will leave it there, and I will recommend the proposal. Thank you.
Christine?
I'm happy to second that proposal, and again I'd like to thank the officers for all the work they've done, and certainly what the lead member's been doing on behalf of the county on this matter. Thank you.
Deborah?
Thank you. Just a couple of points from me. Obviously, this is a really emotive and it's a really important service that we do. You know, becoming homeless is horrendous for anybody. So if we can work further upstream to stop people getting into that situation, hitting crisis point, I think that's where we should be targeting what little money we have to do this. Just a few questions for me. I'll ask them all at once and then you can answer me. So you said that the total amount of money that the Falcon Service get at the moment is 210,000 from the contract. What I don't know is how much of that is part of the Falcon Service's overall budget. So I don't know what their income. I know they're a charity and they get benefits and grants, etc. So how much is that 210? And does that pay for all of their support staff within the service as well? And I was just reading some papers that are going to Charnwood's Community Safety, their paper that's going to finance and performance scrutiny next week. And sort of, for example, they get a grant from the Charnwood Community Safety Partnership for £20,000, and that provides a recovery navigator. So I am aware that they're getting other grants and funding from elsewhere that is also helping them with their support staff. So what percentage is there of their overall income is this 210 that we give them through this contract? Does that pay for all their support staff? I think I know the answer to that because I've just read out that they've got a recovery navigator there funded from the community CSP. And I'm taking it that all the people that stay in the Falcon Centre are entitled to council tax benefit to pay for them to stay there. So that's not going to alter at all by any decisions we're making here today.
Yeah, thanks. As you point out, the current provider, the Falcon Support Services, will have a range of funding streams, housing benefit from the people who are staying in there, other grants that they've got, as you pointed out, the rents that they charge for the accommodation for people, which is then claimed back. I think looking at the last set of accounts they filed, their overall group income is just shy of £3 million. I think it's £2.8 million. Of that, ours the from us, as you say, is £210,000. Not all of that £210,000 is the InReach service. They also receive an element for coordinating with the other consortium member of the current contract. So the actual InReach element is what, 150 about £150,000. Yes, that obviously, I mean, it does pay for support staff, because the whole point about the current contract is it provides staff who then would support people in the hostel with their health and wellbeing needs support. But obviously that doesn't represent the totality of the kind of support staff that will be in there. That, you know, I mean, they're not there to do the caretaking, keep the lights on. They are there to provide a specific service.
So that 150k for compact, sorry, leader, that 150k that does the in support is only supporting 30 people at any one time, whereas under our proposed model, it can help a lot more people. So it's really hoping, and it's only those people that are at crisis point where our statutory duty is to help them before they get to that crisis point. So we need to get up the other end rather than funding the crisis point. Is that the model that we're now looking to implement instead of this one?
Yeah, again, you know, I think that's right. You know, essentially, this almost gets into kind of reviewing the whole service model. And again, one of the key things for me is how do we try and prevent homelessness and improve the health and well-being of a population of people who aren't just rough sleeping or in a hostel, but are at risk of homelessness, at risk of losing their tenancies. So that mix of having the community-based support that Josh just described, the links in with district councils, housing officers, I think that's absolutely key to try and support, to do our bit of the support as best we can with more people across the county.
Just to add as well that when we're talking about temporary accommodation, the focus seems to shift towards hostels, towards Falcon, and actually we're talking about B&Bs, we're talking about those who are sofa surfing. So the numbers are much more significant, and that's the cohort that we're also wanting to reach out to.
Sounds like a lot better service to me. Ozzy?
Thank you, Leader. Certainly, you've explained quite a lot there and put my mind in focus now. It seems that this really does give a greater help to more people across Leicestershire who are potentially coming homeless or are homeless, that we really need to look after, because a lot of these people do suffer from various illnesses, and we need to make sure that, you know, we are looking after the homeless. I know the districts do a lot as well, and the LACs, as we call them, the local area coordinators, are a vital point in making contact with people. I've been in close contact with my LAC. They come to the parish council meetings, they work in the community, and they actually find the people that we need to help. So I'm very supportive of the way we're going. We are not going away from helping people. We are improving our help to people across the county. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you for your comments. And I think it is also worthwhile remembering, you know, what's our overall duty from a public health point of view? It's to take steps to improve the health and well-being of the population, fully recognise that the health of those at risk of homelessness or of rough sleeping or sleeping, you know, in temporary accommodation is really important. It's not as, you know, it's nowhere near as good as the general population. So we need to take the appropriate steps to improve their health. That is a whole different service model from providing accommodation and getting involved in the district council's responsibility.
That's absolutely right. I think this is a good policy, and I thank you, Louise, for the work you've done. I know it's been difficult at times, and you, Joshna, from above and beyond where you need to be. So thanks very much. So it was moved by Louise, seconded by Christine. Can we have a show of hands in favour? Thank you very much. Another one from you, Mike. Annual report of the Director of Public Health, Leicestershire's Health, what the Health and Wellbeing Board's dashboard tells us. 219 to 252. This is being considered by the Health Wellbeing Overview and Scrutiny Committee. Their comments are included. You're going to present, aren't you, Mike? And then I'm going to you again, Louise. Which one are yours?
Yes, thank you, Leader. I'm going to have to do this one on my own. It's a scary thought. You know, where's my support? So as the paper sets out, I have a statutory duty to produce an independent report on the health of the population. You'll quickly realise that I haven't done one since 2019, so welcome to my full yearly annual report, which hopefully you'd understand that COVID wasn't very helpful to me in finding the space and time to consider the health of the population more broadly. However, it is important that I get back on track with producing the annual report, and for this one I wanted to go back to kind of first base, which I could have chosen to do a topic, but I just wanted to sort of lay information out to the public, to yourselves and to partner organisations on how Leicestershire's health is looking. So I asked Victoria Rice, as our public health analyst within the data and business intelligence section, have we got something which just gives me a list of indicators which would describe the health of the population? And she rightly pointed out that we did have one, and it was a health and wellbeing board dashboard. So the reason I've used the health and wellbeing dashboard is just trying to avoid duplication. That dashboard